can't believe it. It's finally happening. I'm marrying my man.
That's right, and I'm very happy to be with you. I can't wait for the ceremony to start.
Now hold on just a second. That is my man, and we are marrying each other. I wasn't told about a third party.
What is the meaning of this? This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life.
Now, ladies, I can explain. You see, there was her parents and an arranged marriage.
Stop. Don't even say anything. I don't want to hear anything from you.
Actually, he has a lot of explaining to do.
Boy, that was a mess. Will that man ever marry anyone after that? Speaking of marrying, marriage is common around the world, and it's interesting to see how different cultures approach them. From the two women involved in the fiasco, both of them are from different culture, the Jewish culture and the Korean culture. Let's begin with a culture I'm very familiar with, the Jewish wedding ceremonies. For starters, both couples begin to fast on the day of the marriage. This means that they will not eat or drink anything other than water. When beginning the ceremony, it's tradition that the groom veils the bride, and this stems from their ancestor named Jacob performing this act upon his second marriage to make sure that his bride is his bride and not somebody else. Meanwhile, the priest is reciting the marriage testimony. Both the bride and the groom are under a tent-like object called the chuppah. In Jewish culture, it's common to have a shawl over your head during blessings, and the chuppah is a special large shawl that was made for marriage blessing. Once the groom places the ring on the bride's finger, the priest then reads the marriage document out loud to show that marriage is more than just a physical and spiritual reunion. It is also a legal and moral process as well. So in other words, they better do it because they want to, not because someone else does. And after the blessings and hymns are sung, the guests then approach the chuppah in order to receive a cup of wine and recite the blessings towards the couple. Eventually, the time comes where the newlywed couple are led into a room where they could be away from the guests for a few minutes. Here is where the couple would break their fasting for the first time as a married couple, and during their time in the room, they would recite their marriage vows and blessing towards each other. In American culture, you would normally see this action performed in front of a crowd, but that's not the case here. The rest of the time of the wedding reception is usually just more recitings of blessings and dances and all that good stuff. Now let's take a look at the Korean culture. A lot of traditions and actions in South Korea are usually inspired the Confucian idea of how everyone should play their role in society, and marriage is no exception until recently. More people in modern times are celebrating their marriage in Western perspective, where it's the couple's plan to marry, much like the Jewish and Americans. For now, let's focus on the traditional Korean wedding. In Jewish marriage, the parents act more like bodyguard towards their offspring throughout the marriage. In Korea, the parents play a huge role in marriage. It's traditional that the parents act like matchmakers and would work with the other parents to figure out the entire ceremony. While it's uncertain to what their purpose for doing so is, a lot of the times it's so that both of the parents of the duo married are connected with each other. While it's uncertain to what their purpose for doing so is, a lot of the times it's so that both of the parents of their offsprings are connected with each other. Moving on, Koreans wear their traditional Korean dresses or hanbok during their ceremony. Unlike the Jews, they would usually wear American-inspired dresses in modern times. Usually you don't have to worry about a long or boring ceremony at a Korean wedding because they would usually last to 30 minutes to an hour. From there, now that they're married, they are now considered adults in Korean society. After the ceremony is complete, the wife would head towards the husband's relatives and perform payback, or a series of bow, in order to show respect and closeness. Throughout all this, along with the future honeymoons and house, all of this is paid by the parents, just because it's traditional that the parents would pay for everything for their children until they are adults. So they plan all this before the wedding ceremony. Another thing that's interesting about Korean marriage is that it's only performed once. Unless one of the pair has not experienced the ceremony, it is not necessary for a second round of marriage ceremonies. While it was nice and dandy looking at the differences between the two cultures, now let's look at the similarities between the two. It was interesting looking at the difference between Jewish and Korean marriage, but there are similarities between the cultures? Well, yes. One of the biggest things that both cultures have is the presence of the parents. While I only mentioned them briefly in the Jewish culture, they are very important in Jewish culture as well. They are usually the closest to their offsprings. So in Jewish marriage, the couples are treated like kings and queens. So throughout the ceremony, in most cases, even during the reception, the parents who are usually guarding and guiding the married couple, while at the same time, every decision is made by the couple. In Korean cultures, the parents' influence are present before, during, and after the marriage. They also act as guides to the married couple, as well as plan everything out for them. They would cover the expenses for almost everything. I guess I could end it by saying that Jewish weddings usually symbolize the prosperity for newly married Jewish couples. For the Korean wedding, I would say it symbolized the prosperity and unification of the parents of the groom and bride. However, in modern times, this can now be applied to the couple as well.